What's going on, guys? My name is Joe. This is the Duel Factory, and it's been a while since I've posted a video, but I've also been playing a lot of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh for the past couple months. And for the better part of, I want to say 3 months, I've been playing Branded Chimera, and my buddy Bobby's been helping me work on the list and everything like that, along with some other input from other players that I trust and stuff like that in the game. This is actually what I played for YCS ND. In that event, I actually came up short, so that was unfortunate. And I've taken it to a couple regionals where I've done very well for myself, but I've come short on a couple top 8 finishes. But this is the list that I've been working on. What I will say is, in terms of those who've been watching the channel for a while, it does break traditional deck building rules for me, where I do play 44 cards. But that's because I believe the best way to play this deck is a build that's over 40, so that way you see your engine requirements and or bricks less in hand, and see more of your power and consistency cards without them all clumping up. But enough about that. I'll get in the list, give you my thoughts on that one, and then you guys can tell me what you think in the comment section below. So on to the Chimera part of it, which I think is the consistency part of the deck. I play 3 copies of Sword Knight. Not much to say there. It is your Lone Fire Blossom for the archetype. It does hurt when you get cut off from this engine. And then they all have secondary effects. Like this one is your monster effect negator, and then Codal searches Sword Knight. It also searches Gazelle and Baphomet because I have Chimera Fusion in the text. But this is your targeting protection. I have thought about cutting Codal down to 2 multiple times, only because Droll and Lockbird is a very prevalent card in the format. But I found to make your game ones slightly more consistent, you do need to play 3 copies of this card. Now, I do side a copy out very frequently, but I think for game ones, you need to max out on these cards. I do play 3 copies of Gazelle. It's your best level 4 beast. It searches your illusion monsters sent for a fusion material. What I will say is, if you're starting your turn off with this card, if you don't have like Chimera Fusion or something like that, you're very, very vulnerable. But the engine's nice. It's a very, very consistent engine. And then the only 2 we play is 2 Baphomet. In the branded version of this deck, Baphomet is the worst, arguably, of the engine. That's why we play 2 of it, but it can also be considered a starter, depending on how you open up in your hand. And for the fusion spell, we play 3 copies of Chimera Fusion. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's essentially polymerization. It's a quick play polymerization that requires that the fusion material that you use either a beast and or fiend. You don't have to have both. It can add itself back if you control Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, or Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast is in your graveyard, which the fusions fulfill that requirement. And then there's another effect that it has, but it never comes up because we don't play any of the OG cards. I've also considered playing less than 3 of this, but the way I found this deck best plays through hand traps is you have as many cards to overwhelm your opponent's hand traps rather than trying to pick and choose where you play that, and Chimera Fusion helps facilitate that part. So that is the Chimera stuff. Like I was saying, these are your consistency cards. Now to show you your power cards, which is the branded engine. So we play 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Not much to say there. This can also be classified as a starter card because it can send Gazelle and get your illusion engine rolling and stuff like that. But the power cards in this deck are your branded cards. And I feel like I play this differently than most branded Chimera players because I play a large branded engine, but I'm also like very aware that like a lot of your power plays comes from these cards. So I'm also playing 3 copies of Branded Opening, which to me is your brilliant fusion of the deck. Like, it just raises the ceiling of your deck because you see Branded Fusion more often. You could do more explosive plays. And then as an engine requirement, we are playing 2 Fallen Albaz. For the longest time, we were only playing 1, and then Bobby was telling me how important the second one came up, but I didn't want to hear it. Then we went to a case tournament, and then there were 2 games where I found myself needing the second Albaz, and then we've been playing 2 Albaz ever since. And then that's also another reason we went to the 44 card deck list, to see Fallen Albaz in hand less frequently and seeing more of your 3-ofs and stuff like that. And then we do play the 1 Aliber. This would be considered your Garnet. You don't really want to draw this at all. If you're drawing this and it's your only playable card in hand, you have a major problem. But you need to play it as an engine requirement for Branded Opening, so that way you can see your Branded Fusion. And then it puts a lot of stuff on board too. Like, people forget, like, the typing and attribute actually become very relevant because we do play Super Poly in our list. Being a Dark Fairy is actually like a really big thing. And then the last like branded card I would say is the Light Hex Sealed Fusion. For the longest time, we were playing for Saga the Destroyer, and I still think that card's really, really good, especially now that we have the Baphomet Fusion, because it becomes part of your combo But the problem that you run into that is when you go that line, instead of making Albion, you're making Lubellion, and Lubellion requires you to invest another card. Whereas if you play Light Sealed Hex Fusion, you can make your Albion, and then the Albion doesn't require a discard or anything like that. It's like a true Miracle Fusion. So then you can make Dragoon for one less card, and then accomplish the same thing you're doing by sending Versago. The one thing I will say that Versago, like I said, Versago has the added benefit of working with your engine naturally, where Hex Sealed Light Fusion does not, but at that point it doesn't really matter if we're just using it to stick Dragoon on board. So that will be it for your branded cards. And then for the Frightfur cards, which I'm an advocate that you need to play these cards, because they add a lot of power, they add a consistency, and they add a lot of power to your deck. And they also make cards like Branded Opening and stuff like that way, way, way better in your deck. Now, what I will say is the last event I went to was the most recent regional in Indianapolis, where Cashier took first place. And I played the list without Branded Opening and Aliber, and I played a straight 40, and I played Fenrir's instead. And I'm not going to lie to you, this card was infinitely more weak without like Branded Opening and stuff like that. So if you're going to play the deck without Branded Opening, I wouldn't play this engine. I'll be 100% honest with you. But I thoroughly believe you need to play this in the deck just because it does raise your ceiling that much higher. And like I said, it's almost like consistency cards. And Edge of Chain also has the added benefit of being a Fiend monster, which is really, really, really important in this deck. The obligatory 1 copy of Poly, and then I play 2 copies of Patchwork. You can play 1 Poly because we play Magnum the Reliever. So the 2 Patchworks, you can usually resolve 2 in a game. And then what I would say is your follow-up cards, because we're playing such a big branded package. Let me move these out of the way real quick. I play the 1 copy of Spriggan's Kit and the 1 copy of Branded and White. At first, I didn't play these cards at all, because I didn't think they were very good. And then we got the Baphomet Fusion, and then I think it became a lot better. Because of the Baphomet Fusion being able to send Vergot Saga the Destroyer, making Branded and White a way more lethal card turn 1. However, I've cut Versago the Destroyer, but I still play these cards because Kit facilitates 2 roles. One, it's a beast, so you can still use your Chimera Fusions and stuff like that. So you can still make your Chimera the King of Phantom Beasts, you can still make your Baphomets, so on and so forth. But the Branded and White, instead of having to play it turn 1, you can search it and use it as follow-up. And that's really, really important in the deck, because a lot of the times, like I said, your power cards are your branded cards, right? Your consistency cards are your Chimera cards. So you're consistently going through your engine most of the games, but you need to be able to put an additional body on board, or you need to be able to swing back if you're cut off from your engine, and I believe these 2 cards facilitate that role. So that's why we play them in the list. And again, I also didn't play them in the most recent ND Regional, and I really missed having these cards in my deck. So I think if you're going to play this deck, and you're going to play the branded version of it specifically, you definitely need to play these. And then the last 12 slots in the deck are board breakers and hand traps. So we are playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization. I will be the first to tell you, I hate playing this card in the deck. That being said, I think you have to play the card in the deck. 1, it's a board breaker. 2, it works with your engine naturally. And 3, it's another way to dodge like hand traps and interruptions. Because like, for example, you're using it to crack boards anyway. But the nice thing is with this, especially like if you see stuff like the mirror, things like that, which I did run into, when you go to like summon your Gazelle and activate the effect, and then they try to clip it with like an Imperm or Veiler or things like that, 1, Super Poly fulfills the same role as Chimera Fusion. Now it does require an extra card because you have to discard it. But the nice thing about it is it cannot be responded to. So if you need to stop the chain link immediately, knowing you can deal with other hand traps, you can do that. 2, it also facilitates the rule of cracking a board, especially now that like a lot of like main decks and Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually put up some way to put up like Barone SP, and this 1 card deals with those interactions. It's also really good against generic decks and stuff like that. Like for example, because we play Branded Opening, your Branded Opening and this becoming out 2 cards like X Pearly Noir and stuff like that, because it is a Dark Fairy, and that is very important. But the card itself, like it's game changing, but there are some matchups where I don't think it's like super like powerful. Like before we got Baphomet, I didn't think it was good against Unchained. Now we have Baphomet. I changed my opinion on that just because like normal summon Gazelle, they go to like do something to it, and you can just chain it and make Baphomet, and then like your opponent's scrambling at that point. So I don't like the card, but you have to play it in this deck at 3. And then the hand traps just get filtered out based off what's going on in the format. So like I said, you play 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Effect Veiler, and then 3 Imperm, just because I think they're the best generic ones. I can, like I said, I go back and forth on like what the non-engine in this deck is. Like right now I'm not playing Talents because I don't think it's like great, but there's an argument to play Talents in this deck just because it works so well with Chimera. Because like if they hand trap you, Chimera's taking a card, Talents taking a card, they're starting their turn with 3 cards in hand. Like, you know what I mean? So the non-engine gets changed just depending on format dependent and stuff like that. On to the extra deck. So we are playing Branded Chimera. So the Chimera cards, like I said, we play 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. For those of you who don't know, it takes a Beast and a Fiend to make this one. It rips a card out of the hand when it's fusion summoned, and then its graveyard effect is during your opponent's turn. You can banish it. You can target Beast, Fiend, or Illusion Monster, and special summon it to the other side of the field. And it's really cool, especially when you pair it with the new fusion monster, which is Baphomet, the mythical King of Phantom Beast. It works really well with it, especially like post games 2 and 3, because your Baphomet can send sideboard cards. Like for example, we side End of Anubis for a while there, King Tiger Wangu. I've been recently siding Invader of Darkness because Bestial Runic is becoming more and more popular. Invader of Darkness is insane against runic spells. And then the King of Phantom Beast can bring it back, and then this can bring the King of Phantom Beast back, so that way you're not cut off from your interactions with Sword Knight and Codal. But yeah, those cards are insane. And then we also play 1 copy of Chimera, the Illusion Beast. This is how you kill your opponent through attack position monster. One thing I've learned is you definitely do not leave anything in attack position against this deck. Just don't do it. I'm still playing Magnum the Reliever. We're playing it because we're playing the Frightfur package. And 2, I think the fusion monster itself is insane because it fulfills a lot of roles in the deck. 1, it's a fiend monster you can make that will still allow you to bridge into your Chimera engine if necessary. This card itself is insane against Pearly because of its Ghost Ogre-esque effect. It also lets you see more cards in your deck. And then another cool thing that it interacts with it, what a lot of people don't remember, that it being a fiend, it can be revived off either Chimera and or Baphomet. So if you need to fuse it off to like if you need to fuse it off to get back into an injury or anything like that, it can be recurred from your graveyard and still act as an interruption. And people forget like that is also a line of play. And it all like it's kind of cool because like you can do that. You can banish Chimera, bring this back from your graveyard, sit on it, use the Ghost Ogre-esque effect to interrupt your opponent, which is insane against Pearly and other decks too. But you can also, it also fulfills the requirement of being a fusion monster. So if you had like Super Poly face down, like not only are you removing a card with this, but you can use a Super Poly in this and say they have like one of their, say like Black Cat, or they have like a Yama or something like that, and that can put you into a Predaplant Draco Stapelia, which also acts as an interruption. Like the card itself is insane. I would definitely keep playing it for sure. Like I can understand why people want to cut it, but at the same time, like I feel like it's an engine requirement based off the deck that you're playing. And then I'm also playing 1 copy of a Guardian Chimera. I was a big advocate for 2 at first, but like as long as you're not doing anything stupid and you're just managing your resources, like you can play 1 and be just fine in this deck. Like, I'm not saying that 2 is incorrect, because like the card itself is insane, right? Plus it's also a beast, so it works with your engine. But like there are a lot of games where 1, I'm not summoning this card like a ton, and 2, I think your worst and most abysmal matchup is Unchained, because you're the pop deck, and Guardian Chimera does not help anything in that particular situation. Now since we're playing Poly, it does become an untargetable 3300, which is really hard for a lot of decks to deal with. So I always keep that in mind. But that's what I would consider your Chimera cards, your branded cards. We play 1 copy of Renbrum. It's an engine requirement because it makes Branded Fusion a starter card in your deck because it can Gazelle. But this card itself is actually just really, really hard to deal with. 1, the effect negation is insane against a lot of decks. 2, I like to call it its a hidden ability, but being able to revive Fallen Albaz or revive itself during your opponent's turn is absolutely bonkers. And then the other ones, we play 1 copy of Mirror Jade. This is the best card against Unchained, and like it's one of my favorite fusion monsters, honestly. So not much to say there. Engine requirement and Lubellion, and then you do have to play 1 Albion, especially now that we're playing the Hex Sealed Light Fusion. Being able to make this and then make Dragoon, and then you could fuse it off for like Magnum the Reliever is crazy. And then honorary branded card in Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Now, what I would consider the flex spots and or Super Poly spots. We have 4. So you have to play the Garura because it's one of the best cards with Super Poly. And then you have to play Mud Dragon because it's the second best, right? The other ones that I consider Super Poly cards are Predaplant Draco Stapelia, even though you can make this naturally in a lot of your combos. And then the 4 slot goes to Guilty Gearfried. This was Dragon Knight Draco Equise for the longest time. But because of the popularity of SP Knight Barone as the ending boards for a lot of decks, we've came to the conclusion that this is just a better super poly target. And honestly, it's a really nice card. But that is it for the actual profile itself. I'm not going to show the side deck just because it changes a little bit. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Obviously, I want your opinion on it. But there's a bunch of different stuff you can do with this deck, too. Like, I can't tell you, like, we've gone through, like, so many different iterations of it. Like, I think my favorite version of it was where we were playing DPE. But we were also playing, like, Shaddoll Hedgehog and Beast, so Brain Infusion became a starter card, and it also set up, like, window plays and stuff like that, and then we did a version with Schism and stuff like that. Like, I'd say, I enjoy playing this deck thoroughly, but unfortunately, I'm probably going to put it down for a little bit and play something else. But, again, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. I would love to hear your opinion, and then if there's anything saucy I haven't heard about with this deck or anything like that, I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. But again, my name's Joe. This is the Duel Factory. I'm gonna attempt to bring you guys more content just because I know Bobby's wanting to do some more content and he does a lot of deck building. We do a lot of play testing and stuff like that, so I'd love to show you guys that. But I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.